Britain's Queen Elizabeth joined the celebrations today in London in observance of the 70th anniversary of VJ Day. That was the day in 1945 when Japan announced it was surrendering to the Allies, ending World War II.
Here in the U.S., VJ Day is officially observed on September 2nd, the day Japan actually signed its unconditional surrender. But the anniversary was marked yesterday here in New York as couples gathered in Times Square at a 25-foot statue of a sailor kissing a nurse based on the iconic photograph taken all those years ago. Back in 2012, Michelle Miller spoke with the original couple who told her all about that kiss.
They descended on New York's Times Square in pairs to stand below a 25-foot statue of a sailor kissing a nurse. They'd hoped to relive a moment made famous in black and white exactly 70 years ago. It's one of the most famous pictures of the 20th century, the moment Americans learned of a Japanese surrender.
It was the moment that you come back from the Pacific and finally, the war ends.
89-year-old George Mendoza says he's that sailor in the photograph that would come to symbolize the end of World War II. And Greta Friedman, the nurse in white.
I did not see him approaching, and before I know it, I was in this tight grip.
How long did you kiss her?
Not long.
As the perfect strangers locked lips, world-famous photographer Alfred Eisenstadt snapped 4 pictures. 10 seconds was all it took. We reunited George and Greta 3 years ago at the spot of their first kiss for just the second time since that day in 1945.
The excitement of the war being over, plus I had a few drinks. So when I saw the nurse, I grabbed her and I kissed her.
Did either of you see the picture when it was first published in Life magazine?
I'm sure I saw it.
So did you recognize yourself?
Yes, of course. I mean, you don't forget this guy grabbing you.
No, I did not know the picture was taken.
Greta was a dental assistant on break, heading to Times Square to verify rumors of the war's end. George, a first-class sailor in the Navy, was on a date with another woman. They went their separate ways, not formally meeting again until 1980, when Life magazine asked the previously unknown pair to come forward. George's friend noticed the picture in the magazine.
He says, I know it's you. I said, you're crazy. This was 1980, 35 years after the war ended.
The first time you saw the picture?
That's correct.
But they weren't the only ones claiming credit. For more than 30 years, others said they were the ones in the photo. And for just as long, George has fought to set the record straight.
I started my research in 2007.
He found an ally in Lawrence Veria, a Rhode Island history teacher turned author. In his 2012 book, The Kissing Sailor, Veria argues the evidence rules out everyone but the retired fisherman from Middletown, Rhode Island.
It's a story about our nation in World War II. It's a story about a kiss. It's a story about a place. It's a story about a publication. But at the end, it's a story about 2 national treasures who for 60-some years never got to do that was theirs.
The best proof there is my date. Her face is seen over the sailor's right shoulder.
In fact, his date, Rita Petrie, can be seen in the background smiling from ear to ear.
So the first week you're dating?
Yeah, so.
And he's kissing another woman.
I know, but as I said, I don't know either. I was dopey or something, but it didn't bother me.
It must not have. She's been married to George for the last 69 years.
Women still come up to George?
Oh, Lord, yes. Strangers, if we're at a different function or something, and they'll come up that he's a kissing sailor. So the kissing sailor has to think he's got to kiss everybody. So he does. Everybody gets his kiss.
I have to admit something to you, Rita.
Yeah. Very nice.
He's kissing me.
You, I wouldn't mind him kissing. Very nice picture.
People still write to George asking for autographs and offering words of encouragement. He described a letter with us.
He states something like, it must be something great to be involved in a photo that means the end of World War II. Well, I'm proud of that.
And so is a nation that 70 years later is still mesmerized by that timeless kiss. For CBS This Morning Saturday, Michelle Miller, New York.
Wow. But I would argue that it's not just the story behind it, it's the composition of this photograph that captures everybody's attention. You have the arch of her back and her leg kicking out, and then the buildings kind of going to a V behind them and surrounded by the people. I mean, it just draws you into that moment. It's a beautiful photograph.
And not to mention the girlfriend in the background.
Yeah, which is very cute.
Smiling.
I'd never known that. That's great.
I know only Michelle could get people to open up like that. Such a
Rita
great
says
story.
that maybe she was dopey at the time, but it didn't bother her.
Great story.